I'm Paulina Kacprzak.
And I'm Agana Plocha. In Design Practice Podcast, we talk about the practical aspects of working at the intersection of design and technology.
In this episode, we talk about the future of design in the perspective of the rapid AI development, about the most common mistakes designers make in their businesses, on how to negotiate with clients effectively, and about choosing best career path, specialist versus generalist.
Our guest is Chris Doe, designer, art director, and entrepreneur. Chris is one of the most popular design educators in the world. He founded the platform The Futur, where you can find educational resources on business and design. The Futur has already gathered over 2 million subscribers. Chris lives in California, and we are super honored to have him in our very first episode.
You can find notes and links mentioned in this episode on our website, designpractice.so/001.
Hello.
Hello.
We are super happy to have you in our podcast. It's worth mentioning that you're our very first English-speaking guest, and we couldn't imagine a better person to kick off the new chapter of Design Practice podcast. So thanks a lot for accepting our invitation, and we really appreciate it.
My pleasure. So happy to be here.
Yay. Okay, so let's start. We usually begin our podcasts and our webinars with very specific question. And the question is, what book have you recently read?
I'm in the process of reading, I think, 3 different books. And I find that these days I'm jumping from book to book as I find things that are interesting and pick things apart. But a book that I'm almost done reading is called How to Tell a Story. It's written by the Moth Radio Group. They produce an amazing podcast about storytelling, and it's wonderful. It's full of stories and tips, and I really enjoy it. It's an easy read. Another book that I'm reading right now, it's called 50 Strategies on How to Boost Cognitive Engagement. It's written for teachers. It talks about the new model of teaching where students participate and it's less downloading information to people. The last book that I'm reading is a book by Brian Tracy. It's an old one. It's called The Psychology of Sales or Selling. And it's kind of interesting to see how much sales has evolved and how much of it exactly the same.
Thanks. We definitely will take a look at these books. So I'm sure most of our audience already know who you are, but for those who don't, please introduce yourself. Who are you? What you do?
My name is Chris Doe. I'm a loud introvert. I'm a middle child. I'm a classic underachiever, but I'm a first-class troublemaker. And I'm a recovering graphic designer. I have this really big mission, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. And the way I do that is through open social platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I try to use that to teach.
Yeah. So you didn't mention that you're the founder of Blind, the agency. Yes. Could you tell us how did it start and when?
Absolutely. Shortly after graduating Art Center College of Design with a degree in graphic design and packaging, I started this company called Blind in 1995, just a few months after graduation. I had this deep burning desire in my body to become an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, mostly a failed entrepreneur. And eventually I had enough skills to try it out, and I started this motion design firm in 1995, and I did that until about 2018, making commercials and music videos for a living.
And when did you start your YouTube channel? Because at some point of your career of running a studio, you started to teach on YouTube, right?
That's right. In 2014, I think it was 2014. Yeah, 2014, my friend from school, Jose Caballero, he invited me to go and create content on YouTube. And it's not something I thought that I would ever want to do because, like, who wants to be on YouTube? So I thought that there were a lot of people who didn't know what they were talking about trying to teach other people on YouTube. And I didn't want to be associated with them because they really didn't know what they were doing. They're usually very young, inexperienced, and they had just read a book or learned a skill, and they were professing that they knew what they were doing. But ultimately, Jose was very convincing. He told me to make videos on YouTube. So in January of 2014, we started making our first piece of content. And now we have over 1,800 videos on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, and
been...
it's amazing. It's amazing because you have almost 2 million or over 2 million subscribers on YouTube. So it's unbelievable success.
Yeah, and it's been 10 years. So did you face the moments of burnout or moments that you really wanted to just live it?
You're talking about creating content for YouTube or running a design agency?
Yeah,
Both.
creating content, actually both. But yeah, we're talking now about the YouTube channel, the Futur. So tell us more about it.
I
Your
love,
struggles with
yeah,
it.
sure. I love making content. I like teaching. It's a dynamic platform, and the things that you make don't always work, and things are always changing. So it's very hard to get bored and complacent. If you go into cruise control, I think what happens is your channel starts to become stagnant and stale, and people lose interest in you. And plus, I like this idea that we as human beings can evolve and grow constantly. And so I wouldn't even want to like start and think, oh, I figured everything out. There's nothing left to learn. And now I'm just going to demonstrate the things I already know how to do. So I'd rather experiment. I want to learn. I want to try different formats and techniques and subject matter. And the channel is kind of a reflection of that. Some people get upset at us and they said, oh, I remember when this channel was all about design. Well, yeah, at one point it was. And then we evolve, and we're going to continue to evolve, and hopefully our audience grows with us. And that's the way I look at it. So the struggle hasn't been so much like losing motivation to run content, but it can be difficult at times because speaking to you two is actually kind of fun and interesting because we're having dialogue together. But when you record content, you're usually recording with no one there, no one in the room. You're not looking at a face. The only face you're looking at usually is your own face, and it's not a face I like to look at too much, right? It's like staring into a mirror and talking as if someone really cares and is interested in what you have to say. So it is a drag. Every day it's a drag in terms of creating content. But I love the process, and I do love the journey and sometimes the results. And the results are an audience appears. They feel grateful for having learned something, having transformed, picked up a new tool or something like that. And I enjoy that process very much.
It's a nice coincidence because 2014 is exactly the year when we started to organize many conferences and meetups and other things for our community here in Poland, designers community. Of course, our community is much smaller than yours. I don't think that there are 2 million designers in Poland, but yeah, we're starting with English language, so who knows?
Yes.
Yes, because most of our content is in Polish. So let's see what future will bring.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
We wanted to ask you for the beginning about really hot topic about AI. Many designers are afraid what the future will bring. And what is your perspective? What advice would you give to designers regarding AI? Do you think that designers' job is finished or it will be finished soon?
Well, I got to tell you something about change and evolution is it happens whether you like it or not. So the first thing I would tell everybody is don't be afraid. The future happens without you, whether you want to participate, whether you want to accept it or not. And so oftentimes when we're presented with an obstacle, we can't get over it because we're so shut down. We're so afraid of what's going to happen that we can't take advantage of the opportunities. And the opportunity is just hidden within the obstacle. And if we just look back at history, let's just look back a little bit before I answer your question. There was a time when the main means of transportation was just walking. And then somebody figured out that you can get a horse and you could ride the horse. And that was pretty cool. So all the people that were walking were threatened by the horse and they say, well, who's going to take care of the horse? What if the horse throws you off? What if we get there too fast? What am I going to do with all my free time? So people are always worried about change. And this is a mindset problem, a limiting belief. Let's fast forward into the future here. And Henry Ford said this. He says, you cannot ask people what they want because what they'll ask you for is a faster horse and not a car. So you have to invent the future. And that's what having a vision means, to see something that no one else can see and to be so committed to it that you'll manifest it into reality. So I know I'm getting a little bit on mindset here, but you'll see a pattern happening here. There are people who love shooting on analog cameras with celluloid film, 35 millimeter, and they go have it processed and printed, and they look at it through a loop, and they do all those kinds of things. and they push back against digital technology and digital sensors. They're aficionados of film and celluloid, and they get very nostalgic about it. But each and every single one of us most likely has a camera in our pocket, and the best camera to own is the one that you have with you at all times. It's not the best sensor, it's not the best of anything, but it's available, so that makes it the best. And so it would be silly for us to sit around, I think, the three of us, to debate about the merits of digital cinema and photography, right? But that kind of debate is happening everywhere within creative communities, for concept artists, for illustrators, for graphic designers, for writers, for marketers, about the displacement that they're going to face with artificial intelligence. Now, I'm willing to bet. Anybody want to take me on the bet? Years from now, the dialogue that we're having around AI will be completely pointless and no one will even talk about it. There will only be a time in which everybody has been using AI. So we're at the precipice.
One year, right?
Not in a year, but in a very short period of time.
Okay.
Yes, I would
Yeah.
be willing to bet in 3 to 5 years that this is not even a conversation. Just think about how much radical transformation has already happened within the last couple of years about the adoption of electric cars. Like, Tesla is worth more than Mercedes-Benz. Tesla has sold more cars other than Toyota, I think, in California at least. And this is an electric car with electric power grid that just 8 years ago, people could not even imagine. It was just a novel concept for a few rich, eco-minded people. And now it's one of the best-selling cars and car manufacturers in the world in some areas, right? How did this even happen? So what we're doing is all the, and I have friends that are going to get offended by this, all the diesel heads, the ones who love the grumble and the sound and the rumble of a gas diesel engine, they're going to miss all the carbon dioxide, the monoxide, and all the smog that it's creating. You're going to miss that. And that's okay. It could be nostalgic and we can hold on to that, but we have to embrace the future. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the company is called The Future. There's a reason we're here. We're living in it. Embrace it. So with AI tools, we have a choice. We could put our fingers in our ears, bury our head in the sand and say, la, 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 this is not happening. I don't want this. We could debate the intellectual, philosophical, legal merits. We're not philosophers. We're not intellectuals. And we're not attorneys. So what are we doing? We're pretending to be one because everybody's got an opinion about this. What I'm trying to do is empower my community, the people who are willing to listen to me, to say a great wave is coming. Whether you get swept up by it, dragged out to sea and drown, or whether you grab a surfboard and learn how to surf is entirely up to you. So I want to encourage people in our community, before you make up your mind, before you formulate an opinion about something, investigate. And if you don't like it, don't use it, but give yourself a shot. Because like many opportunities, when it becomes clear, when it becomes adopted by the mass majority and then the laggards eventually, and when your mom and dad are using AI-empowered tools, you're going to be sitting there thinking, how did I miss the boat on this? Why didn't I listen to that idiot?
So let's say I'm not a designer yet, but I want to be a designer, work in design world. But I'm wondering if it's worth to learn the design itself, how to design, or maybe it's better to learn how to use the AI tools instead. What do you think?
Okay, very, very good question. Should you learn how to design? And my answer is unequivocally yes. Yes, but not the way that you define design. A lot of people, when you say, how should I learn how to design? What image conjures up in your mind? Well, somebody sitting at a desktop, probably with their pen or their mouse, making graphics, choosing what typefaces to use, arranging beautiful layouts. And that's a finite definition of design. I like Herbert Simon's, the Nobel laureate's definition of design, which is one who devises courses of action to move from an existing condition to improved one. And that is a much bigger, broader, more inclusive, holistic definition of design. Should you study design? Should you pursue design? Yes, but design isn't limited to the way things look. It's the way things behave. It's designing culture. It's designing customer service, the entire experience from A to Z. It's just looking at a problem and saying, let's use our divergent thinking, our beautiful divergent brains to make connections where people don't see things coming together. In that way, yes, we should all be creative and we all should be designers. But the tools and the times are changing so fast that I think practicing this kind of very artisanal way of applying graphics to an image or to a screen or to a medium, I think is a way to box us in that isn't big enough anymore.
Yeah, so you're telling that designers should, instead of worrying and like having philosophical debate, they should actually get into action and just try, right? And look for some opportunities. I think this is our job right now in terms of AI. But talking very specifically about tools, have you ever used any AI tool? And if you could tell us if you see whether these tools are good to incorporate in your current workflow.
Yes. You know, of course I use AI tools. We all do. We use them every single day, and you don't even acknowledge it because it's so transparent to you. If you use Photoshop and you use the auto masking tool, how do you think that thing works? Like, is it just magic? Like the little Adobe gremlins and fairies come out and sprinkle magic over this? And last time I checked, no one loves cutting out images. The better the AI tool works in cutting out an image for you, the better off you are. Right? So how does it know this? Because it's Sensa, Adobe Sensei engine, this neural engine that they call it, has been studying faces, and it understands that this is the foreground, this is the background, this is an arm, this is hair. We want to separate all these things. It's not perfect. It's not even close to perfect, but it's getting better every single day. Now, it's able to help you in a AI assisted way to cut out images that would take you a very long time to do. And actually, if you didn't know all the different techniques about layering and masking and alpha channels and color ranges, it would be very difficult for you to do. A couple of Adobe Maxes ago, they do this something called sneaks, and they show you where the tools are evolving to. So we're kind of impressed that it can take a two-dimensional image and cut it out. But then you bring it into Premiere and After Effects, and now they're showing tools that are already integrated into the software platform that do rotoscoping, that cut out moving images and can intelligently figure out where things are. Now, no one's scared of that. And in fact, we're like joyful and glee about like, oh my gosh, I don't have to spend so many hours working on this. But we do need to understand when the tools get so powerful and they start to cut out images for you, someone's job is gone. Because someone used to do that. Someone used to be like, hey, I was the rotoscoping artist, and frame by frame, I would adjust mask and use a bunch of different techniques to be able to cut this stuff out. Those people are going to be out of work because this technology will empower average people to do something that they used to do. Maybe not as good, but when it costs 1/10 or 1/100th the cost, it's worth it, and they'll do it. Here's another use of AI. People who use Grammarly to correct their English. How do you think it's doing that? Especially if you use the pro version, like how does it know to write the sentence for you? It's powered by AI because it's looked at a lot of sentence structures. It looks at the word and it knows this is the wrong conjugation, that it's an incomplete sentence or it's a run-on sentence. So it will fix it for you, with your permission, and you're delighted to pay it. What do you think it's working on? So why do we draw the line here and not over here? I don't understand. I think the greatest waste of human capital, that is you, is to get your creative brain to do mundane, repetitive things. As soon as AI can replace all that stuff, you should be happy. And then what's more powerful is AI is, in many ways, if you know how to use it the right way, an amazing creative partner to help you with brainstorming. So when I get into Midjourney and do some prompting, I'm not always clear about what it is that I want. I have a general direction. I'm not sure what words to use. And AI shows me what it thinks I want based on the language and the words I've used. And sometimes it shows me something I had not expected, was not counting on, that exceeds my expectations. And so in that way, like AI can actually make us better versions of ourselves. I'm gonna give you one more example and then I'm gonna get off my AI soapbox, and feel free to attack me in the comments. I'm ready to bring it on. I'm a big boy. I can handle your criticism and debate about all this stuff. Okay. I have a couple of friends that are on the spectrum. They're neurodivergent. Some of them have ADHD. Some of them are literally visually and hearing impaired. And some of them are just like on the spectrum. They don't think like the baseline, what we consider normal people. But with AI tools, they're able to do things that quote unquote normal people can't do. And it's fascinating to me to watch. So I have one friend, she's on the spectrum. She has wild ideas. And she has a hard time being concise, using specific and short phrases to describe what she wants. But with AI, she's able to dream up beautiful, surreal images that I just think like, wow, it's fascinating how your brain works. Like I can't even think of those words to type in to come up with that kind of imagery. And so now AI can empower her. And what I told her was, I know you're busy trying to do lots of different things, but you as an image creator with AI enhanced tools can come up with images that are conceptually so profound and just visually so beautiful. Why wouldn't you want this? And she started to get a little emotional about it. Like, wow, I just didn't even think of myself like that. I have a friend. He's partially blind in one eye, deaf in one ear. And what he does is he listens with the one good ear he has. Then he dictates, because his brain works a little bit differently, to AI to transcribe what he's talking about. Then he can use AI powered tools to then turn that into short descriptions, stories, or anything. Like I have a hard time just listening, let alone listening and speaking at the same time while managing the AI in the background. And he's able to do 3 things at the same time. Now, without those tools, I'm sure he's an amazing human being, but now he's a superhuman being. And the last person I just want to mention is using AI in a different way, where she likes to write poetry. She's intellectual. She's super smart. She sent me a little proposal. When I say little, I mean it was like 14 pages long. I could not read all this, right? And she was struggling with Midjourney and AI tools. And then she was stuck with it for weeks and months, and then was like named one of the 100 top AI creators for last year. And I think, wow. So in this literate world, we don't want to read 45 pages when you can tell the story with a single image. And she's gotten so good at it. I'm just impressed. I'm blown away myself. So I'll stop it there, turn it back over to you ladies, and see where you want to take this conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that you actually brought super interesting topic, which is the neurodiversity and AI. And wow, it's really like very opening. So we're having one question from Bartek, and I think that this is the right place to display it and ask you, Chris. So how do we teach people the basics of writing or design? These are the 2 areas that are most affected by ChatGPT or Midjourney, so that they will be able to create good work using AI.
Okay.
What are your
I love
tips?
the question. Love this question. What do we think design is? I want to ask you 2 ladies. What do we think design is? I'm just curious.
To me, it's solving the problem.
Okay. Solving problems.
Yeah.
Yes, making decisions to solve the problem.
Making decisions.
Yeah. Looking for alternatives.
Thinking about the process, the whole experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Doing the research and looking for some insights.
Okay. And when somebody hires you to design or to write, what are they paying for?
For the result.
What is the result?
Oh.
Selling more products.
Okay.
Or something beautiful.
Yeah, for eye pleasing, but basically it's most business related.
Mostly, if we're smart and we're asking the right questions, right? We don't always think that, but make something beautiful. Okay. So you remember earlier, I was talking about the definition of design from Herbert Simon. It's to move from an existing condition or situation to improved one. So we just want to go from here to there. And so what is here? What is there? And a lot of times designers and writers are hired because I have a loose idea of something and you can make it into reality. You can manifest it into reality. So you can articulate something that is very hard to express with words or images. So when a company hires us to design a logo, let's just take a logo because it's very easy to understand. And they build a product and they have a history and a story and some values and a culture they want to share with the world. And they ask you to design a logo. What is the logo making process? Is it to create abstract shapes on a screen or a page or something that's printed? I don't think it is. It's to articulate something that is very complicated and distill it into a singular icon that's memorable, that's unique and distinctive, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So what is design then? I think design is the articulation of something that's intangible into a simplified form that other people can now touch, read, consume, and feel. And so when Bartek asked this question about how do you teach the basics of writing design when all these AI tools are out there, what are those AI tools doing? With the right prompt, it articulates something for you It either writes a multi-sequence email marketing campaign, or it can create an image or images based on those prompts. And so I think design and talking to the computer to manifest the abstract into reality are almost synonymous, meaning they're almost the same. The reason why some designers and writers are good at using AI-driven software and others aren't is because they know how to articulate what it is that they want. And that's what ultimately a client is coming to you for. I need to write a campaign that's going to get a high open rate to get people aware of a problem that they're not aware of and to buy a solution. I don't know how to do that. I could write it in an ugly way. I could write it in an overly dramatic way. And so then you, as a writer or a designer, are able to go in and start to articulate what it is that you want with certain amounts of control. Now, there's something here that a lot of people have not talked about thus far, which is if you give AI crappy inputs, it'll give you just generic, typically generic, kind of cookie cutter solutions that look like everything else you've seen. It's not artistic, it's not beautiful. And I've tried because I've changed a few words and I've gotten totally different results. Some are beautiful and some are just totally ugly. And so you think, well, why are some people so good at using AI? Because they have the language skills, the writing part, and the vision and the history of art and design that they can then talk to the computer and get the computer to create what it is that they want. So you have to have high quality input in order to use AI to get high quality output. So things like art history, architecture, the history of photography, just the history of design. If you know the language, that then you can articulate to the computer what it is that you want. Now, I was talking to a department chair at the product design department in New York City at a design school. And he said, well, we agreed to this. The computer already knows all the art styles. It knows all the history styles. It knows all the design styles. The problem is you don't. You're dumber than the computer because the computer has been trained on all these things. So it knows the difference between what Bauhaus design is, what Swiss modern design, and what, say, a Dada design looks like. And if you don't know any of these three terms, you see who the dumb one is. It's not the computer, it's you. So what we have to do is to educate young people, people who are in school, or people who are interested in becoming or remaining relevant in the 21st century, believe it or not. And here's the shocker, is to become knowledgeable about the history of design, art, and writing. So history now has more importance than it ever has because it has high utility conversion here. So I'm not trying to tell you that I was a great student, that in graphic design history, the history of graphic design, that I wasn't falling asleep. I wanted to stay awake, but I didn't know what the application was. Well, now, if not ever, the case for understanding history of art and design and architecture and photography and illustration and fashion is more important than it ever has because its utility is really high. Those who understand history will be creating the future.
Wow, this is like past creates the future.
Let's switch a topic a little bit for clients and for business. You have amazing experience with consulting, with teaching, so you know the problems of people who are designers, what they are struggling with. And what do you think are the most popular mistakes that designers make when they collaborate with clients?
The biggest mistake, that there are probably two. I think there are two. Number one, the biggest mistake that designers make is they think they're artists and not designers. And it's a big one. And I'm going to insult a lot of people. I'm going to tell you this right now. As of right now, you're not an artist. Thinking that you are one creates a fractured identity within you. So at one hand, you go to the client to ask for money to support your lifestyle, to solve a problem. But then you're also equally insulted when the clients want you to do something that doesn't feel like you're creating your art. And those are very different things. I was at a screening for Cloud Atlas, a film written and directed by the Wachowskis. And the Wachowskis, when somebody asked them, like, what's your definition of art? This was very, very fascinating to me. It's probably one of the coolest definitions, which is art is an invitation to look at the world from a different perspective. And so if your art is good, it really brings someone to look at the world from a different way. And I was just looking at the artwork of Keith Haring. Do you guys know who Keith Haring is? Like a New York artist. He passed away young, and he does this kind of monoline characters, like these like human stick figures and these lines all throughout New York subway. So he said, let's look at people and portraits differently. Let's abstract them down to almost really thick, chunky black and white stick figures and express people this way. And to me, that is art. Andy Warhol asked us to look at things differently by looking at objects that are mundane and scaling them up like soap and detergent or Campbell's soup and saying, let's look at this as art now. And that to me is super fascinating. And if you want to be an artist, go get a studio. Make your art. Just don't expect anyone to commission or pay you for it and have any kind of steady income until you get to a point in which you create so much demand for your artwork, for your perspective into the world, that you can now live comfortably as an artist. And we can see probably by the number of people who paint and create art, that the number of people who actually can make a sustainable living at that very high level, it's kind of like being a professional athlete. It's kind of like being a superstar artist, like a music performer. Lots of people do it, few people succeed, and even fewer are in that upper echelon of success. So I think we need to get clear about our identity so that we have harmony with who we are, how we see ourselves, and how we serve the world. When you accept money from a client, you're solving a problem. You're paid to get a result, regardless of your personal feelings about art or design. If the client ultimately says, based on my experience, if we keep this logo up here and we sell more and we move it over here, we'll sell less, and you decide to exert your creative muscles because you were trained in art school not to do that, you have now potentially put the person's business at risk with no evidence that this works, with no risk or skin in the game. So what a lot of designers do is they say, well, we're going to make these changes because it's going to be for the best. Aesthetically speaking, it might be. Objectively, it's debatable. But what we're saying is we know better than our clients about how to run our client's business, which we have no right in doing. We can make suggestions and recommendations. We can sometimes insist, but at the end of the day, we need to remember they're your client. They allow you to exist. They allow you to have to live in a place and put food on the table and hopefully save for a rainy day. Mistake number 2 is the inability to choose what it is that you do. So the lack of focus, which no one likes to describe it as that, but the debate usually sounds something like this. Should I niche down or should I be a generalist? Should I be a specialist or should I be a generalist? And I think in some instances, people will be very successful being a generalist. In most instances, being a specialist far exceeds being a generalist. And I'll give you a couple examples, okay? Because this is a problem, a mistake that people continue to struggle with, and it hurts them. All right, here's the example. I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you've been on social media and you're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, one of those platforms, we see amazing humans doing really boring jobs really well. We see the Indian guy who's folding pizza boxes and he just does them and he's just like flipping out 1,000 at a time. We see the older Latino woman who's like making tacos like 1,000 a second, and she's like, or the guy who chops vegetables or chilies and he's just doing it without his, like not even looking, he's just doing it 1,000 times. And how did they get that good? Why do we admire these people? Because they've done something so many times, they've exposed themselves to it so many times that they can now do it in ways that are just beautiful just to behold. And that comes with repetition, exposing yourself to the same problem over and over again, that you start to develop muscle memory and you start to spot patterns. The divergent oriented creative person's like, I like a little bit of this, I like a little bit of that, I'm gonna do all these things, I've done none of them well, and it can't go much deeper than that. And so they suffer. And what they're doing is inadvertently, they're inviting people to compete with them. Like, what? Really? Yes, really. Because if you design logos and that's all you do, you compete with everybody in the world from $0 to $2 million probably that makes logos, right? And if you say, well, I also design packages, well, now you compete with everyone who charges $0 to $2 million who does packaging. So now you've invited twice as much competition. And then you say, well, I take photos too. Okay, so now you're basically competing with every human alive that has a smartphone, because everybody's a photographer now. I say that with tongue in cheek a little bit, right? So now you compete with all humans, people who make logos, and people who do packaging. So when someone wants an image made, they don't decide like, oh my gosh, I want someone who can do all three things. Most likely, They want to hire the person that's going to present the least amount of risk. Most likely. The more money you pay, the less risk you want to take, right? So when we drive in a car in America, we're required to have insurance, because if we were to get into a really bad accident, to fix the other person's car, the property, to pay the medical bills, not to mention our medical bills, it's very, very high. So we pay some money to cover us. And the more money we pay, the better coverage we have. We all understand that because we're reducing our risk down. You can actually pay so much in insurance that no matter what happens, you'll be covered. When you go to rent a car, they offer you this godlike insurance where they're like, it doesn't matter what you do. If anything happens to this car, it's total coverage. And they're going to ask you for like $20 more. It's not even a lot of money. Now imagine when you're talking to a client and they're paying you thousands of dollars, how much risk do they want to take on in a poor outcome? Very little. Now, if they pay $4, they'll take more risk because $4 doesn't matter. They'll try another thing and they'll try another thing because they can afford to try many, many things. They're losing time, but apparently that's not important to them. So when they're looking for a photo, an image, do they hire the person who can design a logo, do the packaging, and take the photo? Or would they just like to hire the best photographer? And the answer, generally speaking, is if they have a lot of money, they hire Annie Leibovitz or they hire Albert Watson. They hire someone who can shoot an image that they've seen shoot 1,000 times before. And then there's you with 4 images on your portfolio. So now you've lost that gig. And then we get to the logo design. Again, they're going to choose someone who's designed logos 1,000 times for companies that are in the Fortune 100. They're not going to hire you. So the key to this is to, for a period of time, pick one lane, focus your energy on that one thing that you want to do, and repeatedly show yourself that problem over and over and over again so that you get that practice, so that you become like that Indian guy folding the boxes in a pizza parlor. So you become like the older Latina making the tacos, or the guy who's cutting the vegetables. Or you see this too. This is a beautiful thing to behold when there are like 5 contractors with giant sledgehammers and they're driving a spike into the ground. And they do this in such perfect unison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a circle. You've seen these videos, right? And they do this in perfect harmony and perfect rhythm. It's incredible to watch. Anybody who does any skill really well, we marvel at. It could be cutting down trees. It could be making a beautiful dovetail joint with traditional woodworking tools. We love that. And there's a Latin expression. I cannot say the Latin expression, but it translates to this. There's nobility in doing humble things well. There's nobility in doing humble things well. The problem is many of us turn our nose up at these things and say, well, that's stupid. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be stuck doing that. So you never get good at it. And this is the problem. I'll talk about that problem some other time, but I'll just put a pin here.
Okay, great. So I would like to circle back a little bit to the situation that you were mentioning about collaborating with a client when client says A, the designer says B, and client says eventually that, hey, I know better because this is my business. So what we should do as designers in order to be treated as a partner who can enter the dialogue at least.
Yes. So there are consultants and people who are much smarter than me about this subject. And when we use the word partner, what do we really mean when we say we partner with our clients? And when I ask you this question, usually when someone wants to partner up with me, they have an equal or a proportionate stake in the outcome. Okay? So I just want everybody to just think about this. If the 3 of us were to partner together, there's some assumptions we'd have to make. What do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? So we could start with finances. How much of your money would you invest in this thing? Okay, so let's say the 3 of us are going to start a business because we're going to be partners together, and we need to have $100,000 to start. Just to start, because if it goes poorly, we have to put in more money, right? How much money would you put in? Well, a lot of people would say, well, none. I got other things to do. So what kind of partner are you? I'm not going to put any money in this. And if things go badly, not only did I not put money in the front, I won't put any money in the back. So I want us to use this word partner a little bit more carefully and not just throw it around, because it's easy to describe ourselves as a partner to a thing when we have nothing to lose or to gain. No, I hate to say it like this, but In the worst case, you're a vendor. In the best case, you're two businesses working together, but you're not a partner. So when we partner with somebody, we need to put our money where our mouth is. So if you go into it and you say, do not pay me any money, I'm going to partner with you, providing sweat equity. And if you get positive results, I want some gain from that. And if you get negative results, I'll keep working on this until it becomes right. And then maybe you can start to use the word partner. So what we're talking about is a person has paid you to do a job. And generally speaking, we're in the customer service business. So we need to make sure the customer is happy with not only the end product, but how they feel about receiving that product. I challenge every single person here today to go in and hire someone that's very expensive to do something. It doesn't matter. Landscaping, maybe cutting your hair, maybe a stylist. And for that person to treat you like crap, to tell you they know better than you about your land, or your yard, about your personal style, about your hair, that you don't already know about it yourself. That they're saying, okay, to Aga or to Paulina, hey, it would be great if you dyed your hair green and cut it into a mohawk and you got a face tattoo. That's what you should do. And you say, well,
no way.
You say, no way, right?
Yeah.
And then they insult you. And it's like, I know what I'm talking about. And this is why you hired me. If we're going to partner together, you really need to listen to me. I know best. How are you going to feel?
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good, definitely.
You probably say, how do I get my money back? Because I'm going to report you to the Better Business Bureau. This is garbage. I would never tell another single person ever to come here. In fact, I'm going to go on social media and tell them never to work with Johnny or Mary ever again, because you treat me like trash and you're imposing your ideas on me without even understanding who I am. So the best way to collaborate with your client is to gently ask them for control of the project, and for them to willingly give you control for a period of time. Now, there's a lot of things you have to learn how to do in order to do that, but that's the goal. And it was what Blair Enns calls the polite battle for control. Mm-hmm. It is polite, and we're trying to get control. How do we get control? You might be thinking to yourself, because that sounds wonderful, because all I have are clients standing on my head telling me what to do all day long. Well, the first way that you're able to get a little bit control, to get concession, is to be positioned in a way that the clients look at you as an expert. This brings us right back to the generalist versus the specialist debate. Do we think in general that generalists have done things a lot of times, that they have enough knowledge to get our project from point A to point C, and they've seen this problem over and over again, that they can actually recommend it? So here's a test. The test is this. When a new client walks into the room, and you can predict the 3 or 4 things they've tried in the past that haven't worked, the 2 or 3 things they're going to say but aren't true, then you'll know that you've seen the problem enough times. But every problem looks brand new. It's because it is brand new to you. You have no idea where this is going to go. And therefore, you have little evidence and probably low confidence that you can deliver the result that you're about to promise. Right? So when I'm working with an agency and they want to pay me as a social media influencer, relatively speaking, I'm brand new. I don't know what the challenges are. I don't know what they're going to pay, because I've not seen this enough times to develop any kind of expertise at it at all. And I'm admitting that, and I don't pretend like I do. And this is the problem. So the mentality is, and this is where everything you think is wrong. I'm just going to say it. Everything you think is wrong. Because we think if we offer more services, we open ourselves to more clients. When in truth, by offering more services to more types of clients, we actually get fewer clients. How do I know this to be true? Well, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Go and look at your checking account. What evidence do you have? If you believe that being a generalist, by providing lots of things to lots of people and making no decision, what Blair Enns calls making the difficult business decision, then you should have evidence. If you look in your checking account right now, it's full of money. You actually don't even know how to spend it. You're thinking about all the things that you want to buy, and like, which will you buy first? And chances are that's not true in most cases. There are some exceptions to this, of course, but in most cases, people are suffering. And when I tell them you need to pick a focus, they fight me on it and they don't want to do it. So I say, hey, you do it your way. But please don't waste any more of my time by asking me for advice on what to do and then not listening. You become an ask hole. You ask for advice and you take none of it, except for the things you already agree with. So why even waste anybody's time, right? What is the exception you're saying? There must be an exception. Well, there are. And there's confusion of the exception. So let me go there first. What people generally do is they look at successful people who've been doing this for years and say, well, that person's successful. They didn't specialize. So look at all the things they do. And you know what they do? They point right at me. They're like, what about you? Your YouTube channel's all over the place. You started graphic design. You did motion design. You did live action. And you did branding. Now you're doing content. Now you're a teacher. You're all over the place. I said, fair enough. Now, where are you in your career? They're like, well, I just got out of school. Where am I in my career? Well, I graduated in 1995. In fact, I've been in business now for 27 years. No, I've been in business for 18 years now, or 28 years, which is longer than you've been alive. And I don't want to say, like, I don't want to brag about how old I am, but I've been doing business, entrepreneurship, not thinking about it, not reading about it, but actually doing it, running a big business or a small to medium-sized business for longer than you've been alive. And you're going to say, I'm just going to jump the line and go all the way to the end and say, I can do what you do. Well, if you can, you're some kind of genius and you don't need any help. Because I think I'm pretty smart. I think I'm hardworking and I think I have talent. It took me 28 years to get here. You're going to try to do that. And that's a mistake they make. They look at the end and say, well, I'm going to copy someone's end, even though I'm at the beginning. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. No sense. Okay, what are the exceptions? The exception is this. If you're in a management leadership position, being a generalist is actually an advantage. Business leaders, CEOs, presidents tend to have a lot of knowledge or a little bit of knowledge about a lot of different things. And the reason why this is important and why it's an advantage is because they need to connect teams together. So you're managing different departments and divisions, and you're trying to get them to work together, and you're trying to get all the parts to come together. And only you can see that. This is why the conductor in a symphony is the most important person, because he or she keeps everyone on time and on tune and directs them, because without it, they start to play and they start to drift apart. Oftentimes, the conductor is not the best musician there, clearly. Sometimes they are, but most of the times they're not. So they have broad knowledge about lots of different things, but they know how to bring teams of people together to make something more beautiful and bigger than the individual participants can do on their own. That's when a generalist usually is helpful or has the advantage.
We also asked our community about their biggest hardships in terms of business. And it turned out that it's negotiating with clients. Usually the clients want to pay less, but they want to have more at the same time. The designers are also afraid to change their offer, to increase their prices. What piece of advice would you give to them, taking into consideration that times are tough? We are facing recession and the market is really difficult due to war-related issues. And if you face this kind of issues related to recession, did you notice some kind of change in your clients' behavior in terms of negotiating?
Well, during times like this, where there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, when inflation is up and there's wars going on and the supply chain has been disrupted and we're coming in and out of a global pandemic, it can be very bumpy. So what happens is people in the middle seem to get slaughtered. And so I'm not sure if your audience is aware of something called the inverted bell curve. We know what a bell looks like. It looks like that, right? Like a bell. And so if you take that bell and you turn it upside down, it'll look like this, okay? And what it shows you is there are people who are doing well at the top and people who are doing well at the bottom, not people doing well in the middle. What do I mean by this? Let's look at retail. I don't know about you, but when I walk around tourist centers where there's shopping malls or a lot of department stores and retail places, I walk around and I look at which stores are busy. And I scratch my head looking at some stores. Like, I hate to say this, but there's a juice place. I won't name their name. There's a juice place that I used to go to all the time when I was much younger. And every time I walk by this juicing place, there's like one customer in there. If there's even one, and they have prominent location, fairly big footprint, and there's nobody there. Okay. And then you go and walk past a premium coffee place where they're selling $8, $10, $12 coffees, and there's literally a line out the door. I'm like, how did this happen? What is going on here? And so that is an example of the inverted bell curve at play. People at the very highest end, let's say in computers, it's Apple. Let's say in hotels, it's the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons. And people at the bottom end, the Motel 8s, the discount hotels, they'll do okay too because there's a market for them. So the people in the middle tend to either go towards the high end or they go towards the low end during tough times. And so if you're having a hard time right now, it's not a sign that that you're not good. It's just because you're poorly positioned. It's not clear as to who you serve. If you want to serve the low end or the high end. Okay. Now, I'm not saying this to brag or to flex on your audience. I charge $1,500 an hour for coaching. I've been booked more than I've ever been booked before. In fact, I've been booked so much, I just told my team I need to raise the price, and this is going to be jaw-dropping to many of you, to $5,000 an hour because I'm just getting booked too much. I'm tired of doing it. So we talk about pricing elasticity or inelasticity, which is when times get tough, will people choose to spend their hard-earned money with a sure thing or something that's questionable? And if you are well positioned, if you are an expert that you've seen a problem over and over again, and you're able to demonstrate and articulate that expertise to people and you're forward looking, usually in these times you'll survive and you'll be just fine. But there are many businesses out there in retail, in food and hospitality, even in education that are going to be destroyed. So again, I implore everybody who's listening who is not doing well right now to really heed the words that I'm saying. Number one is to pick a niche, to decide what it is that you want to do with your life, and to put in the necessary hours to gain the level of excellence and expertise that you need to so that you can be considered on the high end. Most of us in the creative space that do bespoke creative services cannot afford to live doing volume, meaning we'll charge a little bit of money and to get lots and lots of customers. But a lot of us have this mindset that is the answer, and it's not, because you as a creative person have a finite amount of logos that you can crank out in your lifetime. Forget about it in a day, in your lifetime, because eventually you'll have gone through all the ideas and you'll feel like I got nothing left to give. So please, please, please do not race to the bottom and sell those very finite amount of things that you can create in the world for as little money as possible to get one client today. Because the way that ends is it just keeps going down. You know, you imagine water going down a drain. That's you, your prices, the kind of clients you work with, your authority, your control, your profitability, your future, your motivation, your inspiration. It just goes down. If you stop and at least maintain, at least you can temporarily hold off on that negative spiral. But the ideal way to do this is, instead of going down the vicious cycle, we need to turn it around, and we need to get into the virtuous cycle. We need to find ways in which we can develop expertise, charge a little bit more, so we're a little bit more profitable, so we feel a little bit more confident, so we're not working as much, so we can spend some of that time and money developing our skill set, hiring other people to help us, which allows us to do better work, which allows us to attract better clients, which allows us to charge more. This begins the upward path towards the virtuous cycle, and that's where we need to be.
So one of the ways to earn more in Poland is to have clients from the West. And many of designers here are trying to do that. Many of them succeed. How do you think we as Polish designers should communicate our services and brand in order to be perceived on the same level as Western native English studios or companies? And do you have any experience with working with Polish designers or maybe from Central Europe designers, and you see some patterns?
Yes. So let's get through this part. The way that you work with any other culture other than your own is to think, talk, behave just like them, right? I made this analogy before. If you are from one part of the world and you want to marry someone from another part of the world, and for whatever, let's just use it because it's very simple. I say I'm a guy and I fall in love with a Polish girl, Okay. And I go to Poland and I'm trying to ask her father for her hand in marriage. I have to learn your customs and your culture. I have to learn to love and eat the foods that you eat, to pray to the same gods that you pray to. I need to learn that. I need to address your parents in a way that they feel is respectful and kind. I need to treat. So this is not that different, because what we're doing is we're not courting a life partner. We're courting a client. So we have to learn the language, and I don't mean just English part, but we have to learn the visual language, how it's presented, and things that might not be so perceptible to us as a foreigner would be very noticeable to a native person, right? And so you can get help, and you can do it yourself. You can literally go and look at 3 to 5 websites that serve that foreign community, that foreign market, and try to understand how they talk about themselves. What does the about page look like? How do they present their work? What is the style of photography that they're using? And start to say, okay, we can now reverse engineer and make a recipe for what works, what doesn't work. And then what we have to do now is do a very difficult thing. We have to actually look at our own work and objectively say, well, I'm almost there on 2 things. I'm really far away on 6 things. I need to work on those things if I want to appear as if I'm a native company. And it's very important that you appear this way. And it is actually not that hard. So how do I know? Well, if you use all Roman characters, it's a little easier to understand. If you write short but clear, succinct paragraphs or sentences or descriptions that are in English that have no grammatical or spelling problems, that helps. Now, luckily, you have all these, AI-powered tools to help you do this. So there's really no excuse for you to screw this part up, right? And the rest of it is just your ability to pay attention to detail. Now, I don't mean that you need to wash all of your website of characters that are not Roman-based, but you need to lead with things that make you feel like you're at least a player in the market, potentially an international player, and you need to strip out all the kind of things that signal to other people that they're going to get a good price here. So if you work in, and this is very easy to point out from an example point of view, which is if you work in an Asian market and there are Asian characters everywhere, they're instantly going to know that you're from Asia somewhere. And the presumption from the West is it's going to be cheaper, because generally speaking, it is. Now, if you're able to present yourself in a way that is attractive because you're courting a potential client, when they actually call you and talk to you, at this point, you can't pretend anymore. You're not going to. You're going to be yourself and you're going to do your thing. Now, it is okay for people to want to drive a bargain. People in the West do this to people in America. It's not different. It's just how business is done. So when an American company calls me in America and asks me for work, they want to get it for the best prices possible, right? Nobody's going to argue that, especially if they're really experienced. So when they call somebody in Eastern Europe or somebody in Asia or Latin America, they're going to want the same level of bargaining power that they have here in America. When they realize you're in a different country, they'll start to say to themselves, oh, I could get this done for even cheaper. Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to hold yourself as a professional, to present your prices and be confident, and also just know that it will probably be less than what they would pay in America, but it's a lot more than what you would get paid in whatever country you're from. And that's okay. But let's not help them by negotiating against ourselves by discounting prematurely. Let's not do that. Okay? So say a logo costs $5,000 in the US for me to pay somebody, let's just say. And then you in a different country, you're like, a really good price for me is $4,500. That is okay to say that it's less than the 5, but it's not $500 or $50. That's ridiculous. Then you're just cutting out and you're going to create this race to the bottom part. And if they're like, you know what, could you do it for $3,800? You're like, well, if we can manage the amount of scope or the revisions that you ask for, I think I can make it work. Everybody wins that way. Okay. Now, what experience do I have with European, non-US, Eastern companies? I have a little bit of experience because I hire people from all over the world. Most of the times I have no idea where they come from. So I'm usually delighted. I'm like, oh my God, you're from this part of the world? Let me look up where that is on the map because I don't even know where that is. I like your work. Your work is going to be the thing that draws me to you. and no red flags have gone up. You sound professional. You look professional. When I say sound, I mean the things that you've written and the way that you present. It's only when I get on a call with you that I realize, oh, English is not your first language, and it's not a problem. Not a problem at all. I'm literally working with somebody from Eastern Europe right now, making illustrations for me.
Oh.
And I want to put an issue to bed. I didn't even know. All I did was, and I'll tell you the entire process, okay, so that we can bring one of our conversations and we're going to bookend both parts. I generated some images using Midjourney, some posters for this European tour. A lot of people are like, Chris, make some posters. I don't feel right about making posters off of art that I don't know where it comes from. It comes from a machine, a box. But more importantly, the designer in me says, well, these things are not perfect. I need to make sure that they're really well designed and crafted. I need a human to do this and to work with them to create nuanced changes and to really refine it. And so I asked my team, I said, here's some posters. Find me some illustrators that I can work with. Recognize I have a finite budget here because I have to make 6 or 7 posters and I don't even know if I can sell any of them, but let's just go ahead. I'm willing to do this. So they showed me 6 people. I said, that person right there. I have no idea, man, woman, trans, where they come from, like that person. I said, can you get this person? And hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get this so that we can afford to do this project. They come back and they're like, it's this budget, Chris. It's a little bit more than what I want to pay, but it's affordable, relatively speaking, and I'm willing to do it. So I want to address several different issues here. Number one, did AI take a person's job? The answer is absolutely not, at least in my case. I can't speak for everybody because the job was created because of AI. Now, prior to AI, I would not even have created images that were illustrative. I would have just done with type. No designers would have been hired. No illustrators would have been hired. I would just had my team make the poster and it would be done. So what AI allowed me to do was to explore relative low cost ideas. And when those ideas seemed to be attractive to people, a new business concept popped in my mind, like maybe I need to print a couple of posters. That'll be cool. And then we hired someone that we have no idea where they're from and we don't even care. It didn't occur to my team at all to say, well, let's find someone from the Czech Republic or from Poland or where. They don't even care. Good work is what gets you the call, right? And then that person was able to ask for the amount of money that they wanted, which was making me a little bit uncomfortable, but not so uncomfortable that I just moved on to the next person. And so now we're in contract. They're going to show me a couple of images and we're going to have a couple of posters, hopefully printed in time for our European tour. So that's the end of that story. And I think that touches on several of the concepts that we talked about that in a very real and concrete way, how this works.
Yeah, it connected the dots, definitely.
And do you know how your team found this person? Like in
Yes.
general, maybe more general question, how do you search for freelancers to work with?
Yes. So they went on Behance most likely, and they just started looking for Illustrator. And you know, when you look for one thing, the algorithm understands what you're looking for, and your ability to describe what you're looking for in the search, articulation again, right? And then all of a sudden certain results come up. Now I imagine, because this is a new request from me, that my lead designer on the project didn't have like 10 people they knew they were going to call right away. But generally speaking, if you're in a business and you already have your favorites and you kind of know where they're from and you're ready to hire them, you kind of know the price range. So as soon as the client calls you, you're not beginning that search and taking on all those risks. I recommend people who hire other creatives to build up a matrix of names, a table, a database of names, styles, price points, turnaround time, and any personal quirky notes about how they like to work, so that when you have a client in hand, you kind of already know who the 3 people you're going to call and see if they're available. So I'll give you another example right now. I'm building out a personal brand toolkit, and I'm really in love with comic books, but I'm talking about comics from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that have this old style pulpy, like offset print look. And so, of course, I reach out to the internet because I don't know who to hire. I've not done this research before, and the internet's amazing. They're like, hey, these people. And so now I have a couple of names of people that I didn't know existed before because of their portfolio and the reputation they have and their friends looking out for them. And that's another way they got work. So you should already right now be posting all of your work up on Behance, making sure that it's presented really well, that it's lit, that it's presented with context. So there's mock-ups, and it's beautiful. It looks like $1 million. It doesn't need to be. It needs to look like that because that's really attractive bait to a client, and they'll go for the hook, right? They'll just go right for the bait and they'll grab onto the hook. The other thing that you need to do is be somewhat active on social media, that you present your work in a consistent way so that people near you can look out for you even if they don't know you. You might like the work of Paulina. You might like the work of Maggie or Jerry or Bobby or Kim because you've been out there. So if you're not active in content marketing, putting out your work, no one can recommend you. No one will refer you. It's because they don't know who you are. It's that simple.
Exactly. Like I have experience with many people asking me for recommendation because I'm with Aga. We are active here in a community where we organize a lot of things. We make courses and conferences. So people often ask about recommendations. So if we don't know anyone from the internet or from the events, we can't recommend them. So it's really important to expose yourself out there.
That's right. Take our relationship, for example. Bartek connected the two of us. I didn't know you. I don't know if you know me, but Bartek put us together, and it's because you have a reputation, I have a reputation, and he helped to bring us together because he wants to see this happen, right? Because now can we just do a little bit of business for a second? Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So I've been to Poland, I think now 3 times. 2 times in which I organized myself to Warsaw, and then I can't pronounce it. There's too many syllables in it, but some other part of Poland, because somebody else organized it, right? I want to say like Zhuzhuzhik, but I can't say it. It's something like that, okay? And I would love to come back. I find Polish people amazing. I've been through your town center, and it's just I want to come back, but here's the problem: is that I don't know if there are enough people there that would be willing to show up for a workshop that I'm putting on. It's been many, many years since I've been back. It's probably been over 4 or 5 years since I've been back. The last time I was going to come back, I canceled because my schedule was just too busy. And so in order for me to set a city as a destination for us to come and teach and share what it is that we know how to do, enough people have to be interested and buy a ticket. Otherwise I can't come. So naturally, whenever we post like, oh, I'm going on a European tour, people from India, from Africa, from Asia, even people from Europe, like, I didn't know this, but there's a lot of Parisians who say, Chris, you should come to France. I think France is beautiful. I would love to come to France. I didn't think I could sell enough tickets. And that's the challenge we all have here. And so Bartek's like, Chris, I want to make sure I can see you in person. Let me connect you to these 2 amazing ladies. If they can't do it, I don't know who can. So here we are. So it's connection, right? So if you're able to communicate to the world what it is that you do, show some level of expertise and competence, and do it consistently enough for a period of time, then the laws of the universe and all that goodwill and the karma will connect you. So my thing is, you need to be able to do something long enough for you to become successful. You're waiting for success to knock on your door, but rarely does it happen overnight.
Chris, you gave us a lot of great insights and advice, and we ran out of time a little bit, and we want to ask a few of questions of our audience, but there is a last question from our list. We didn't even ask the half of it, so
yeah.
But there is one question I really wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Because we have friends who have a small studio, and they work with clients in Europe and around the world, and they want to earn more, but without scaling and the number of employees. They have a few employees. They are really good at what they are doing, and we were wondering how you are managing your team, because I know your team is also not super big. It's not like 100 or 200 people,
It's
right? 12. Yeah. So how to earn money without scaling the number of employees? Because you worked with the biggest brands, right? So how you did it?
Well, I have to point out that I've run 2 different kinds of companies. So it's not going to be a short answer. When we're running blind as a service design company, making commercials, music videos, doing branding and marketing for our clients, I think At the highest, we were probably a little over 24 people, 2 offices, one in New York, one in LA. And our business requires lots of people. It's very hard to scale creative services and not have more people. That's why they're not infinitely scalable. So really big companies in our industry have 50, 60, 200, 500 employees. And it becomes very difficult to manage. Okay, so that is a service design company. As an education company where we sell products, we do sponsorships, we do different kinds of things and events, we make money very differently. So we're a team of 12 and we did $4.5 million last year. My goal this year is to scale our team to 24 people and get to $8 to $9 million. And I think we have the plan on how to do this, and we will do this. The goal of your business is not to add more employees. Actually, your goal is the opposite, which is to make as much money as you can, to be as profitable as you can with the fewest number of employees. So the question is how? How do you do that? Well, first you have to change your mindset about selling labor, selling time. We want to be in the business of selling results, and we want to be able to capture some fair share of the results and impact we're able to create. Like I asked you earlier, what is it that what our clients are buying? And you said it. Yes, they're buying results. They want to achieve a result. So if we can understand how businesses are run, how decisions are made, then we can truly help them achieve those results and capture some fair portion of that. You'll be able to make more money with fewer people and to be valued for the things that you do, which is to get somebody from point A to point B. And you can use all the tools in your arsenal, including chat or Midjourney or none of it. It doesn't really matter. So in my 28 years in business, all I've done every single day of my life is to try to increase what it is that I know, my knowledge. The more that I know, the more that I'm able to do, and the more that I'm able to explain what I do to other people, the more my time is worth. So back when I was 16 years old, I worked at minimum wage for about $3.50 an hour. Now, when I do public speaking, I'm paid $30,000 an hour. Same person, sort of. Many years in between, of course, because I'm 51 years old. But the reason why I got paid more and more per hour is because I increased my knowledge. So learning how to apply what it is that we've learned is one of the most critical skills that you need to acquire in your life. I would say this to you if you're coming to my workshop or not. I say this to my children. These are the 3 most important things. One of them is learning how to learn. So when you learn how to learn, you become infinitely more valuable. I'm reading a book, or I've read books on marketing. I've read actually more than 5 books, but let's just say I've read 5 books on marketing. So that when someone comes to me and asks me a question about how do I market myself, what is marketing, what is niching, what is positioning, I can speak from not only a practical knowledge of how to do it, how I've done it personally, but theoretically, conceptually, philosophically, why it's done and where it's going. I become worth much more.
And have you ever met a client who told you, your team is too small for me? Like, I need an agency with 100, 200, 600 people. You're not able to do what I want for my big, rich company.
Yes, clients have said, not those exact words, but they have said that. So what is your question?
What did you do?
I'll tell you what I do. And I will teach this to you, especially if you show up to the workshop. I'll teach you how to deal with this. It's actually not that hard. So what the client is saying to me is more people equals better results, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
More
then
reliable process.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
More reliable, better results, more reliable. I say, okay. So I would say something like this. Well, that's funny. In my experience, it's not always been true. Since you believe that, I'm just curious when that's been true for you. When more people on a project equals a better process, better results, a smoother communication. When has that happened for you before? And what do they say then?
It didn't happen with a bigger team.
It almost never happens with a bigger team.
More problems, right?
Right.
More people, more
Right. More people,
problems.
more problems. And in America, you can send in the Navy to do a job. It's a lot of bodies, a lot of equipment, or you can send in the Navy SEALs. And there are like 6 people in the SEALs, highly trained individuals. Would you rather go through a bureaucratic process like the post office, like the Department of Motor Vehicles, like the government, or would you rather just work with a small, capable team that you have a direct line of communication with? You tell me. So the technique I'm going to teach you there is this. And I'm going to say this. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I usually only say this behind closed doors. I work with the assumption that people do not know what they're saying, that they have no idea what they're saying. And if they did know what they were saying, they didn't choose the right words to say it. So we have a problem. Okay. So the assumption that I make in my mind is you have no idea what you're talking about. Then if you had an idea what you're talking about, you probably didn't choose the right words. So the first thing I do is I just try to understand what it is that they're saying. And I don't want to argue with them. I just want to ask them a clarifying question that's not judging, that's not violent. Right? So what I try to say, like, what are you really saying? What we hear is they're saying your team is too small. But what they're saying really is bigger teams, better results, more confidence, more reliable, less risk. So then I said, I wonder if that's true. Can you tell me when that's been true? And more often than not, it's not been true at all. So I'll give you one example here. Okay. Now, if our client is listening to this, they'll know who it is, but I'm going to keep it very broad and generic. So I'm just put it out there. Okay. One of our very dear clients, they're an agency, and they asked us to work on a project, and they were concerned we didn't have enough technical leads. We didn't have a big enough render farm, like our machines, our software packages, all the things that they shouldn't be worried about, they became super worried about. So they wanted to have their team come and audit our team to make sure we could produce this job. So now you're scared because we don't have the technical leads. We don't have the render farm. We don't have every machine and plugin that you need to do this thing according to the way they want us to do it. And I cannot compete against a company that has 5 technical leads, that have 200 render blades and all the kind of hardware and software and the plugins and all the technical people. So how am I going to win this job? I just asked them, has it been your experience that someone with the technical leads, the render blades, the computers and the plugins have been able to deliver the art that you look for and that you expect in the work that we're going to do? Are you hiring machines, plugins, render nodes, or are you hiring artists that have an opinion, who know how to tell a story? Because I can't compete against the other thing. But, and let me ask you this other question. With all these teams and people in place, do you want to direct them? Do you want to look over their shoulder, or do you want someone just to take care of it, knowing what it is that you want, that can work at or above the level of your expectations? Because we can do that. And of course, then they offered us the job.
This is how you win. Chris.
That's why you want to learn the psychology of sales.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're running out of time, but you gave us a lot of interesting insights and tips and pieces of advice. But there are so many questions from the audience. Are you okay to stay longer for just two of them?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so Camille is asking, what is your opinion about self-managing organization methods, Thiel holacracy? In short, normal managers in an agency, just everyone decides how to do their things and takes full responsibility.
This is very difficult to pull off. And this is a management, leadership, business organization question. It's not something I would be covering in the business clinic. Okay, so I just want to be clear about that. I'll answer this question. You're talking about very flat architecture in terms of who's responsible for what. I think companies who've tried this in its truest form have been complete nightmares. When everyone's in charge, no one's in charge, as my business coach would say. So I think a hybrid form is probably the one that you want. We have an autocracy where everything is funneled through one person. Everything gets approved by one person and becomes a huge bottleneck. I'm not a proponent for that because it puts too much burden of work on one person, and it inhibits your team to think and try ideas on their own, so much so that they become dependent on you to make all decisions Some people like that. I hate that. And if you have entirely flat architecture, well, who knows who's doing what? And you have to have very high level, intelligent, ethical, hardworking people in order for that to work. So I find that some hybrid between the two is the way to go, where you have clear business objectives that are defined by month or quarterly goals that are agreed to by the team, that are proposed by the team, that you give them the means and the methods necessary, but then they lead themselves and they do a weekly check-in with themselves and whoever they report to. And then in this way, there's a lot of autonomy, ownership of projects, and accountability without the headaches of layers of management. But Tony Hsieh, the late Tony Hsieh, tried to run Zappos like this and other companies, and it became a nightmare. So much so that people who loved the company started to leave it because they're like, this is a disaster. Some game companies work like this too. And generally speaking, when you have a company structure like this, it's usually because they're so successful, they have so much money, and they're so innovative that they can afford to waste a lot of things and be fairly inefficient because they're so innovative. If your company doesn't sound like that, I would experiment with how deep you go down that rabbit hole.
Okay, thank you. Paulina, the next question, the last one.
Yeah, there is an interesting question from Charlana. Have you ever turned down a job because you didn't like the client's vision?
Yes, I didn't turn down the client, turn down the job. I fired the client. Because
tell us more about it.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times in which I've had to fire clients for different reasons. The main reason usually is because they don't know what they want. I need to work with not just decisive clients, but clients that are very particular about what it is they want. They're very discerning because we sell at the very highest level. So if they're not discerning, meaning one shade of gray is the same as another shade of gray and they can't tell the difference, they don't care. I think then they're wasting their money and their time with us. I'll give you an example. One of our clients a long time ago wanted to create an identity, and they're one of the hottest post-production companies in LA, possibly in the world. They had some of the best artists, people flying from all over the world to work with them. And they wanted to come up with an identity system. And as they talked to the owner, he's more of a business person and not so much a creative person. That's not a knock on him. And we talked about like what he wanted. And he wanted this epic thing. I said, cool, we could do that. And we made sure to check with him about the references. And he wanted like a DreamWorks logo. Do you know the DreamWorks logo? The movie picture company?
Yeah.
There's a little boy and he casts a line in the water and there's a little ripple. And then we pan up and we see the boy sitting on a half crescent moon. It's a beautiful idea. It's a story in itself and it's beautifully produced. And I said, is that what you want? And he said, yes, that's what I want. So my team and I, we went away and we created all these ideas about art, and each one of the logo reveals was a story. It's a storyboard with a story. We presented it to him and he goes, wow, okay, these are really cool. Can I have some time to think about it? I said, sure. So when we met with him next, he said the most dreaded words you could say to a creative person. So I talked it over with my wife and my kids. I knew at that point I was going to fire him. I was just waiting for him to finish his sentence. Okay. And so he said, well, they weren't understanding this and that and blah, 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 whatever he said. And he says, Chris, can you just go away and come up with just a lot of more logo explorations and just, like when I work with my interior designer, she shows me all these swatches of fabrics and furniture. And I said to him, well, that's what interior designers do. They pull from a catalog of available things and they assemble things together to build a cohesive whole. What we do is not like that. And I said, I'm going to think about this, but my recommendation is that you hire someone else. And the deal I'm going to make with you right now is I'm going to refund your money and you just can't use any ideas that we've come up with. And if that's okay with you, you can find someone else. I said it very politely and he says, Chris, why you want to respond like this? I said, I need to work with people who know what they want. I didn't realize your wife was on the executive committee of making the decision because I would have requested that she be here as part of the meetings. And he was a little offended by that. He goes, you want to think this over? I said, I can think it over. Maybe you can think it over too. So then he had to make a decision. Does he want to save money and hire somebody else to throw up a bunch of things that he, his wife, and his children will like? Or does he want to shut up and work with us? I'm okay with either. So the next day, I called him up and he said, you know what? I thought it over. I'm going to take your generous offer. If you want to send us back our deposit, it'll be in your account by the end of the day today. And what they produced was a piece of garbage. And eventually they had all kinds of problems. But, that to me is a lack of leadership and vision. I want to work with discerning buyers of creative services who know what they want, who have a really high standard and are willing to pay for it, because that's what I offer. So yeah, we fired the client.
Yeah, long story short.
Yeah, that's interesting story. I think we have to finish our nice meeting. It was really great to meet you here, Chris, in our little podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Chris, do you want to end the meeting with like a one piece of advice for designers?
One more piece of advice.
Final word.
my final word is follow these two ladies. They're incredible. I appreciate being your first English guest on your podcast, and I appreciate your help. And I'm going to just say this. I have no more advice. All I do is just give advice all day. And I'll just say this. At the end of the day, all the talking, all the learning, all the philosophy and the coaching and the courses you can watch will mean nothing if you don't apply it.
Awesome.
Great. So for a nice finish, we have a really nice sentence from Aga.
Yeah.
I just want to say personally to Chris, a big thank you for your work. Your podcast on Spotify made for my mental health more than therapy with psychologists. So thanks a lot, Chris, and see you in April.
See you in April, ladies.
Thank you for joining. Bye. Have a nice
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
And morning, Chris. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find notes and links to this episode on our website, designpractice.so/001.
If you like this episode, subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform or YouTube. And go ahead, leave your comment. We'll be very grateful to read your feedback.
And see you in the next episode.